Mayor Barrett,
Here.
Council members Barnacle,
Yes.
Healy,
Here.
King,
Here.
McDonald,
Here.
Posake.
Here.
Let the record reflect 6 council members are present. Councilmember Fisher is absent.
Thank you very much. And with that, we're going to get ready to go to closed session, and I will ask our city attorney to read the items for closed session.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be happy to do that. The council will be conferring with legal counsel regarding existing litigation. The case of Jomi versus City of Petaluma Workers' Compensation Appeals Board, case number ADJ 139466642. And that's in accordance with California Government Code Section 54956.9A. That's part of the Brown Act. Council will also confer with legal counsel regarding another existing litigation matter that's under Government Code Section 54956.9D. That case is Noreen T. Hamilton, Adrian Barajas versus City of Petaluma, Sonoma County Superior Court case SCV 26570. I'm sorry, try that again. SCV 265770. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. And I will ask our interim clerk if there has been any public comment received on this item, these items.
Madam Mayor, there were no comments received.
Thank you. And I will see if our moderator has sees if there's anybody in the audience who would like to comment on these items.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At this time, members of the public wishing to speak on these closed session items, please raise your hand in Zoom and you'll be called on in turn. You'll have 3 minutes in which to give your comments. I see no hands raised, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. With that, we'll close public comment on closed session items, and we will be adjourning to closed session, and we will return to this meeting at the end at 6:30 or the end of closed session, whichever comes last. So we're adjourning to closed session. Thank you. Hello, can people hear me? Okay,
Yes, we
Yes.
can hear you.
good. All right.
I added Tammy Bender, if that's okay. She's the program manager for Healthquest and Heart Safe Community. So I thought I would honor her and introduce her to the board.
That's good. Does she, oh, I see she's on here. Okay.
Yes, I shared my link, which I probably shouldn't have.
Well, we'll forgive you for that, Ramona.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think it's okay with Tammy, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And Faith, are you here on your own, or is Gloria also going to be on? You are on mute.
I don't think she's going to be here tonight, Rainier.
All right, good. I just want to make sure when I'm doing introductions that I introduce you. Good. Okay. So we've got a couple minutes before Patrick will start make us go live, or I guess we are live. But Patrick,
Yes, Madam Mayor?
so when it's 6:30, will you just let us know, or?
Will do.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the link is live. We have 8 members of the public in attendance currently.
But just let us know that it's time to start. Thank you.
And it is time to start, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. And with that, we will reconvene the City of Petaluma regular meeting of the City Council and the Petaluma Community Development Successor Agency for Monday, February 7th. And we will start with a roll call.
Mayor Barrett,
Here.
council members Barnacle,
Here.
Healy,
Here.
King,
Here.
McDowell,
Here.
Postcase.
Here.
Let the record reflect all 6 council members are present. Councilmember Fisher is absent.
Thank you very much. And we will start the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we will now have a moment of silence in honor of the mothers of 2 members of our city family who have passed away this weekend. Councilmember Delinda Fisher's mother, Alice Belinda Fisher of Pasadena, California, and a public defender for the County of Los Angeles. And our police chief, Ken Savano, lost his mother, Marla Savano. So if we could have a moment of silence. Thank you very much. And with that, we'll go to agenda changes and deletions to the current agenda. I believe there are none. And we will ask the city attorney for a report out of closed session.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's no action to report tonight.
Thank you. So we will now move on to proclamations. And our first proclamation is Heart Safe Community. And this will be accepted by Faith, Ramona Faith. And the city of Petaluma designating Petaluma as a heart safe community. Whereas the Petaluma Healthcare District was formed in 1946 by the will of the people, with board members locally elected and accountable for improving the health and well-being of Southern Sonoma County. And whereas the Petaluma Healthcare District serves as the leading organization providing backbone support for a community-wide Heart Safe Community initiative in collaboration with the Petaluma Fire Department and Rancho Adobe Fire District, Petaluma's Save a Life, Save Lives Sonoma, Redcom 911 Dispatch, Petaluma Valley Hospital, and the American Heart Association to designate Petaluma as a heart safe community. And whereas Petaluma Healthcare District serves as a health action chapter and works in partnership with Hearts of Sonoma County to educate the community on heart health strategies. And whereas the goal of the Heart Safe Community Program is to increase survival rates and reduce disability from sudden cardiac arrest by strengthening our community's response to cardiac emergencies through CPR and AED certification and training, strategic AED installation, AED maintenance, promoting heart health education, and following the American Heart Association's links in the cardiac chain of survival, such as immediate recognition of cardiac arrest and activation of the emergency response system, early cardiopulmonary resuscitation and an emphasis on chest compressions, rapid defibrillation with the goal of collapse to shock within 3 to 5 minutes, effective advanced life support, integrated post-cardiac arrest care, and whereas cardiovascular disease is the #1 cause of death in Sonoma County, and sudden cardiac arrest can happen anywhere at any time at any age, and a heart-safe community action plan was developed and implemented that has met established criteria for designation that supports the chain of survival, such as community education on the signs and symptoms of heart attack, the importance of calling 911, widespread community-based bilingual CPR and AED instruction, public access defibrillators, AED maintenance plan, and developing a sustainability redesignation plan for the community. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Teresa Barrett, Mayor of Petaluma, along with the members of the City Council, do hereby continue to designate Petaluma as a heart-safe community and encourage all residents to learn the links in the chain of survival and other life-saving techniques to increase the chances of survival in the event of a cardiac arrest. And I'll call on Ramona Faith.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And thank you to all the city council members as well as city staff. We are very honored and pleased to receive the redesignation. This Heart Safe Community Initiative began in 2013. And we have an internal process where we assess ourselves annually to identify if there's any areas that we need to focus on to ensure that we meet all the criteria, and we do. And we have a formal redesignation every 2 years, and this is our year for redesignation. So we thank you very much. We probably have over 100 heart safe businesses now. Some expand outside of Petaluma, and there has been some interest from Rohnert Park and Cotati to explore how they can become a heart safe community. So we work very closely with your staff, the fire department. I see Jeff, I think Jeff's here. Hi, Jeff. He's been critical from day one in supporting our Heart Safe Community Initiative. So we are very actively involved with our schools. All of our schools in Petaluma are heart safe, and we are expanding into Santa Rosa. So I want to thank you for your support. We have this initiative has definitely saved lives, and it will continue to save lives. And we are leading the way here, and other neighboring communities are asking how can we become a heart safe community like Petaluma. So it's always nice to lead the path and be the leader, right?
Right.
I want to introduce you to Tammy Bender. Tammy is the program manager for Healthquest, which is our AHD AHE training center, as well as a medic first aid training center. And she also helps manage and lead the Heart Safe Community Initiative. And she's been with the district for many, many years. I won't say how many, because then you'll ask how old she is, but many, many years. And she does a great job. So she wants to share an upcoming event with you.
Hi, thank you everyone for being on here tonight, and again for redesignating Petaluma as a heart-safe community. And it has saved lives. We can link some saves right back to our program, which is wonderful. Part of being a heart-safe community is taking care of all members of our community. And on Sunday, February 27th, we are bringing a youth and young adult cardiac screening to Sonoma County, the very first event of its kind in Sonoma County. It's been about a 5-year try to get this thing going, but what it does is it can screen for free any person living in Sonoma County, 12 to 25 years old, can get a free electrocardiogram, which those tests are not included in sports physicals or regular physicals. And 1 in 300 people between age 12 and 25 could very possibly be walking around with an undiagnosed heart condition, and under the duress of sports or different activities can cause that person to go into a sudden cardiac arrest and just collapse suddenly. A couple years ago at Santa Rosa, Gsa Santa Rosa, a person was swimming in the pool, a student athlete, and had a cardiac arrest while swimming, competing in the pool. And that person luckily got CPR, and they used a defibrillator. That's what an AED is, in case some of you don't know, the machine that shocks the heart, and save that person's life. And it's sudden cardiac arrest is the #1 cause of death for student athletes, and also the #1 cause of death on school campuses. And if we can go in there early, find an undiagnosed heart condition, have some early intervention and prevent that person from collapsing from a sudden cardiac arrest, great. So I don't know if I'm able to share screen, and I am going to try to put a flyer in the chat if that's allowed, just so you'll have some information. I know a few people that I see on here already know about the event and already received information, but we want it spread far and wide. So thank you so much.
And Tammy, we don't have a chat on this.
You don't. Okay.
Well, but I think if you will send it to me or to our staff, and I see you're putting it up now.
Yeah, so this is what it looks like, and I can send it.
So that we can then put it on our website.
Yeah, I can send it to the city tomorrow. And just to let you know, I've been in correspondence, thank you, Peggy, with your marketing person, and she has put the information on your Wednesday evening communication to the entire community. And she'll do that all month. So thank you so much for sharing it that way.
Thank you very much. And we appreciate all you're doing for our community, both of you and your teams.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, okay, so now we're going to go on to our second proclamation of the evening, and that is for Black History Month. And for Black History Month, we have Faith Ross with us from Petaluma Blacks for Community Development, and I will read the proclamation now. The city of Petaluma celebrates Black History Month on February 2022. Whereas Petaluma Blacks for Community Development was established in 1978 by a group of concerned Black residents to acquaint the community with Black culture and history, to provide support for new Black families moving into the area, and to ensure that the Black community became a positive part of the larger Petaluma community. And whereas Petaluma Blacks for Community Development, in keeping with their goals and objectives, have continuously provided a venue for sharing with the community through an annual Black History program, museum exhibits, and individual members' involvement in various community organizations and activities. The group has continued to provide support for Black families through social gatherings and reaching out to each other. And whereas Petaluma Blacks for Community Development has continuously supported our youth by making them active participants in the organization, encouraging them in their involvement in school and community activities, and teaching them to value our history. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Teresa Barrett, Mayor of Petaluma, along with the members of the Petaluma City Council, do hereby acknowledge February 2022 as Black History Month and commend Petaluma Blacks for Community Development in their efforts to support community at large to provide our city with Black cultural event activities and an awareness of Black heritage. So with that, I will ask Faith to say a few words about what's happening with Black History Month this year.
Thank you. To the mayor, city council, mayor, and manager, and to the other city officials. On behalf of Petaluma Blacks for Community Development, I would like to thank you for the proclamation, but also thank you for your continued support of the work that we do here. This year has been a challenge, as was last year, to get our events up and running, but we were able to partner with the Petaluma Library to have an exhibit there. We hope to videotape the exhibit and put it on our website so that other organizations can link into it. Our theme this year is Black Health and Wellness. We have shown through this exhibit some of the many factors that cause health disparities for African Americans, starting with slavery. But the silver lining in all of this is the many contributions that Black Americans have made to the medical field through inventions, research, science, and the many practitioners who have given their life work to the health of not only Black Americans, but all people. We are honoring them in this exhibit. We don't have a date yet as to when the exhibit will go down, but we finished it just about today, which is a little ahead of what we had said earlier. We were hoping to have it up by February the 12th, so we will meet that deadline for sure. Our Black History program will be virtual again this year. It will be on Saturday, February 26th at 6:30. Our webpage has the information, and you will have to register in order to be able to participate in the program. And we have, as in prior years, both entertainment and history information. In addition, the thing that I'm really excited about and love is our newest addition to our organization is our Grapevine Youth Leadership Group. Some of you may have seen the article in the Press Democrat about them, but they're making a video for the program. And so I hope you will turn in and see that. Additionally, like I said, there is going to be singing, entertainment, and history information for you. We're also in the process of trying to put together a concert on Sunday, February 27th, too. That's in the works right now. A lady from the East Bay will be doing gospel and R&B. And so those are the things. And we're also working on putting together a panel discussion on health disparities within Black members. So we hope to have all of it put together within the next week and the advertisement out on our webpage. So thank you again for the proclamation.
Thank you very much, Faith, for all you do. And I hope you'll share that link with all of us. So
We will.
thank you. So with that, we're going to go on to the rest of our agenda tonight. And I would just like to make the announcement that there are 12 people in attendance outside in the front of the public on our Zoom attendees. So with that, we're going to go to general comment, and I will ask our clerk if you have received any general public comments.
Madam Mayor, the city received 4 general public comments that have been posted online.
Thank you very much. And I'll ask our moderator, Patrick Carter, to see if there is anybody in the audience who would like to speak on items not on today's agenda in general public comment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to share my screen and I will start a 30-second timer, at the end of which we will count up how many hands we have raised and set the timer for 3 minutes or 2 minutes, depending on how many there are. General public comment, as the mayor mentioned, is for items not on the current agenda and not acted upon by the council at this meeting. And members of the public wishing to speak on general public comment items, please raise your hand in Zoom or press *9 if you're participating by phone. Attendees will be muted when their time expires or when their comments have concluded, whichever comes first. Speakers are encouraged to be respectful. Threats of violence and obscenity are grounds for removal from the meeting. And if you're unable to speak during the time allotted, you may send your comments to the city clerk at the email address shown there, cityclerk@cityofpetaluma.org. We have 3 hands raised, so I will reset the timer for 3 minutes. And there we go. And our first speaker is Paul G, followed by John Hanania. Paul, you may unmute and begin your comments. Paul, are you there?
Well, there was not a button. Can you hear me now?
There we go. Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you very much for the time tonight. We are talking about the city's wireless ordinance, which you know has been tried to be scheduled twice, once in November of 2021 and again in January of 2022. We can't seem to get any response from the city staff about what's going on with this ordinance. This is not the way to run a local government that's of the people, by the people, for the people. We, the people, wrote an email to everyone on January 13th. We sent it to the city council members and to the planning commissioners and to the relevant city staff. We asked them for timely responses to 10 reasonable questions about this wireless ordinance. I was able to have one conversation, again, on January 13th with Erica Baptiste, who answered partially 2 of the questions. The other questions remain unaddressed. It's been that way for 25 days. No phone calls returned, no emails answered, just a total lack of effort. 0, the big Babel. So what are we looking at here? Are the city services now restored and opened back up in February? Will the public finally be invited back to city council meetings so that we're not cut off on a moment's notice by Patrick? What are we going to be able to do to actually restore our rights in a government of the people, by the people, for the people? Because the shenanigans have to end. So what do we want to do? Is we want to get answers to the following questions. Number 1, why is the city of Petaluma staff proposing changes to Petaluma's 2018 revision to its wireless telecommunications facilities ordinance? As I clarified last time, our ordinance is perfectly fine. No need to change it. Why are we doing this? Number 2, where in Petaluma's public record can one find evidence of Petaluma City Council directing city staff to make revisions to Petaluma's 2018 revision to its wireless telecommunications facilities ordinance? What was the specific direction? Where's that in the record? Number 3, is the city of Petaluma currently employing telecom law firm PC or any of its employees and contractors to assist the city of Petaluma? Well, that one got answered. But then we asked, can you provide evidence showing the telecom law firm is not working on behalf of the interests of the wireless industry? Well, that we have admission by the owners of the firm, they are, but yet you can't give us any evidence to the contrary. That's a problem. From January 1st, 2019 to the present, how much money has the city of Petaluma spent on outside consultants to assist the city staff in making revisions to the wireless ordinance, which is completely unnecessary? We can't continue to waste our public funds like this. From January 1st, 2019 to the present, how many city staff or M Group employees hours have been spent on making revisions to this ordinance? Can we get a full accounting? Then will the city of Petaluma give the public sufficient time to read, review, and have input into the proposed ordinance? What we need a minimum of 60 days. We need a regular public workshop. We need a way to engage with the public to actually figure out what is the best thing to do for Petaluma, because the city staff can't guess this for us. The people of Petaluma know. Now, we've been educating the people of Petaluma by the hundreds. They understand.
Thank you for your comments, Paul. Your next speaker tonight is John Hanania, followed by Taryn Obaid. And I was, there was a fourth hand raised and it keeps going up and down. So we'll see when it comes to it. But John, you may unmute and begin your comments.
Good evening. I do have a new name for the city of Petaluma. City of Petaluma has been known for years and years and years, the capital city for eggs and chickens. Well, I think the new name should be the capital city of hypocrisy, because I've never, in my almost 59 years being on this earth, dealt with people such a hypocrite as bad as you guys. And you don't want to hear that. And you don't want to hear anybody point out something negative, or what they see, it's negative. And as Teresa Barrett puts it, and I'm not picking on Teresa Barrett, but those are her exact words, they have an axe to grind. Well, the person who just spoke before me, does he have an axe to grind? Or is he telling the truth? Well, a lot of the stuff he said, I could say, yeah, he's telling the truth, because that's how your staff operate. And a lot of the stuff, that's the way you guys operate. You don't respond to the public in any way, shape, or form. You sit here, or even if you're in a live meeting, you try to make yourself look good, but you're not. You guys lie and lie and lie and lie. You make promises to the public. For example, the Measure U to fix the streets. Where's the streets being fixed? The people who did the survey, Petaluma have the worst road in the Bay Area. And this year is worse than the last year. Have you guys responded to the public? Hell no. How many people do you think I talked to that tried to talk to you and you guys don't even respond? Why is that? When are you guys gonna get a backbone and respond? You have a horrible staff, but when someone like me is stand up and say it, all of a sudden you guys like, oh no, your staff is doing a really good job. Well, you guys said the same thing about John Brown, but once he left, how about you, Kevin McDowell? You remember the conversation I had with you? You remember when you told me how bad John Brown was and how bad you guys fixing up all his screw up? Well, your current city manager and your current city attorney are so bad. They're a lot worse than John Brown, but yet you keep defending him. Why? What's it gonna take for you to stand up and say the truth? What's it gonna take? All you guys, but you know what? I'll get my message through you one way or the other. Okay, I'm not going away. I am not gonna go away. So you guys need to step up and say the truth. Goodbye.
Our next speaker is Taryn Obaid, followed by Susan Kirks. Taryn, you may unmute and begin your comments.
Hi, thank you. Good evening. I have two comments to make tonight, please. My first comment is regarding our housing affordability problem and an opportunity that we have to exercise some local control regarding SB 9. Cities across California are embracing creative thinking to provide for the urgent need of affordable housing. They are adopting emergency ordinances to implement objective standards. I was just down in Santa Barbara visiting my uncle, and they're doing this down there in a couple of cities. Because SB 9 allows jurisdictions to impose objective zoning standards, objective subdivision standards, and objective design standards. Cities are are I'm sorry, building, let's see, they're implementing standards, emergency ordinances, pardon me, such as standards prohibiting building in areas with constrained emergency access and egress, very high fire zones. They're mandating that at least one of the units be used for affordable. This is within cities' local control. They are also requiring that there be one off-street parking space available for the 4 units that now go in a place of where one home was before. And they're setting very high impact fees for the permits before the permits are issued to be paid before their permits are issued. And they're adding provisions that only an individual homeowner can apply for an SB 9 permit, not a corporation, not a developer, and not a hedge fund such as BlackRock. I think that we could really benefit and get our RENA numbers up for affordable housing versus the too much of the luxury in the market rate if we did some of this. My second comment is regarding the minutes for the last meeting, which is on tonight's agenda. And the minutes are very minimal. And I think that we've kind of really relaxed our standards on minutes for some reason. If you look at those, you're going to see that it's missing content, it's missing public comments, it's missing the subject matter of the comments, as well as the sentiment of the comments. And it's even missing that people even made a public comment. So something is really fallen away from the minutes, which are so valuable because not everybody has 4 hours to go through all the videos. If we could please get that back up. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, Taryn. Our next speaker is Susan Kirks. Susan, you may unmute and begin your comments.
I'd like to also comment on 2 things. First, I'd like to say thank you to Ms. Faith Ross for being at the meeting this evening and sharing about the really good work that Petaluma Blacks for Community Development does here in Petaluma for so many years. It's very exciting to hear about the youth program. And I'm just so grateful to come to know more about Ms. Ross. I actually knew her indirectly through one of my neighbors on Paula Lane who passed away some years ago. But just being able to listen to and learn from her is a real privilege. So I wanted to thank her for being here. And so that's one area. Next, I would like to comment on your format for general public comment in your city council meetings. When you meet in person, it takes time for a member of the public to walk to the podium, to make their comment for 3 minutes, and then to walk back to their seat. And in this particular virtual format that you're using, it seems that the public is not really being served. I really believe that the 30-second cutoff time is probably not appropriate. I believe that there should be some flexibility from the person who's leading the meeting in terms of deciding that perhaps someone wants to make a comment based on what another public commenter has talked about. And so the strict adherence to the certain time period and usually giving less than 3 minutes for members of the public to speak is a very different format from in-person public meetings. And I personally, and I've actually heard several people comment to me about this, which is why I'm making the comment tonight. I think that in the past, the mayor managed the public comment, the city clerk kept the timer, and then the mayor at the mayor's discretion would allow someone to finish 2 sentences if they were over 3 minutes. And certainly people could fill out comment cards and come and speak during general public comment. I'd like to ask you to be more flexible and more attentive in this area. And then if you have no commenters during this general public comment period, then that means your meeting might end a little early that evening. But I do believe that it is a disservice to the public, the way that you are setting up general public comment. And I hope that one council member perhaps may be interested in this, and that you may reconsider how you have your general public comment formatted. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. And that is the last hand raised. So I'll turn it back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. And with that, I'll close general public comment. And we'll move on to council comment. So I'll start with Council Member McDowell.
Thank you very much. It's been a busy time since our last meeting. I want to first give a big shout out to our public works staff and the whole team who helped with the public meeting for the North Mcdowell Complete Streets project. It was a great meeting on January 26th. Lots and lots of public input, lots of ideas that were out of the box, some of them in the box and some of them all over the place. But you really got to feel the public wanted to contribute to what gets designed there. And so that was really awesome. The staff did a great demonstration of what the existing conditions and challenges were there. But there's still such a long way to go on that project. They weren't, staff's not ready with plans to show people, things like that. And while that's where that meeting ended, and perhaps other council will comment on that, the people pedestrian bicycle meeting followed just a couple of days later, February 2nd. And again, the Mcdowell was the great topic there. And staff has said that the bidding would be in May, but we're not exactly sure what the content of the project will be. Will it be pavement, which has been identified as funded, or the active transportation part that I think council will have to step up and put more money into the project for that? Or is it north of Corona versus south of Corona? So there seems to be a lot still to sort, but I'm very excited that we'll get a really great project here this summer. I mean, that's the challenge. It's supposed to be this summer. And that's one of the reasons I'm so excited about getting our capital project done and finally spending more and more on keeping our infrastructure together. And another, 5th Street Bike Boulevard is moving right along. And that led to a big question of, as South Boulevard finishes and the part of it that's nearest to D Street to G Street has sharrows and bikes will be in a lane, wouldn't it be better to not have them there, but have them on 5th Street and actually remove the sharrows, don't put in sharrows? So that was quite a dynamic discussion at the PBAC. And let's see, then we also have, the Planning Commission meets tomorrow night. And that's about riverscape townhouses and riverfront, and also our first look at visitability ordinance. And then on Wednesday, I'll be at the Measure O Oversight Committee. That's the mental health funding from the county that got a $0.25 sales tax that came through, like $25 million into mental health in our county. So it's been a busy time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And we'll go on to Councilmember Barnacle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have had one meeting with the Community Advisory Committee for the Ag and Open Space District. We reviewed the criteria that they were using to prioritize projects to implement the Vital Lands Initiative. Was really impressed with the data capabilities of the Ag and Open Space team and in what they're mapping and how they're turning that into action. I'm going to leave it at that. If you want to know more, reach out, but it was pretty impressive. And then we also looked at a few projects that are in the pipeline to be preserved. Two actually parcels of note for us in Petaluma is the Denise Ranch, which is on the other side of Adobe Road. It's about 400 acres of ag space that will be preserved as if it moves through the process. Also was downtown at the pop-up. I think most of the council members, if not all, were down there, but there was a pop-up chess event downtown this weekend. Really great event. I felt like in terms of showing the public something in advance of it actually happening. There was great education, great engagement, a lot of people walking by and saying, what's this? And then, happily, celebrating the idea of having a multi-generational activity right there at the base of Alshaw Bridge. So appreciate the support that staff put into that, and also just the support of the community members who made it happen.
Thank you. Councilmember Healy.
Thank you. A couple of things to report tonight. First of all, the North Bay Division held its quarterly meeting last week. We had an expert on initiatives come and talk to us about what will likely be showing up on the November ballot. As I believe you've all heard from Nancy Hall Bennett, the League Cal City's top priority is opposing the Business Roundtable initiative, which was just cleared for petition gathering, signature gathering late last week. You may have seen people outside grocery stores even over the weekend. An earlier draft version of that would have reached back and invalidated Measure U, but the final version just reaches back to measures that are adopted this year and applies a more stringent standard. So anyway, that's something that's going to be the League's top priority. And I know we're all getting emails from Livable California. They have their own initiative moving forward. The person we were hearing from doesn't think that one has a serious chance of making the ballot, given the funding that Livable California has and the time constraints. So we'll see if that's accurate or not. And then the Water Advisory Committee met this morning. And I am once again the new chair of the WAC for the next 2 years. Natalie Rogers of Santa Rosa is the new vice chair and will be the chair following me. And we were joined for a substantial amount of time by Congressman Huffman, who was talking about the substantial amount of federal dollars that are now available for water projects throughout the country and in our region as well. And what the takeaway from that was, we're going to do better if we're promoting regional projects as opposed to just standalone city or water agency projects. And there's a lot of money available, and it was very clear that the staff of the water contractors and the agency are collaborating on what kinds of projects can be put forward for federal funding. And there are a lot of very creative ideas that I hope will move forward. And then lastly, the council will recall that the water agency was required to reduce water takes from the Russian River by 20% last year, and collectively the region did 22.7%. So that was a success. Thank you.
That's good to hear. Thank you. Councilmember King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have reports on two of my liaison assignments. So the Youth Commission met last week, or excuse me, 2 weeks ago. They received a presentation from Debbie Yarrow of Creative Sonoma regarding arts in the schools. Very interesting presentation, but one of the facts that came out of it is that funding for the arts in our schools here in California tends toward the bottom quarter of all states in the United States. And there were some comparatives on percentage basis, and it was a little bit surprising, to be honest, to see that. I know that this city government doesn't have any say in that, but it was certainly something that was eye-opening. The Youth Commission has also established a subcommittee of approximately 5 of its youth members for the purpose of coming together and determining the Youth Commission's input into the general plan process. So they will hopefully be appearing before the General Plan Advisory Committee at some point, but it'll be a while, I'm sure, by the time they put things together, although they do move pretty quickly. They're not a bunch to sit around and rehash a lot. They get to it and they get it done. So that was the Youth Commission, and we meet again, of course, this week. Sonoma Clean Power had its February board meeting. A couple things to report on. The Empower program, which is the Sonoma Clean Power's community outreach program. We received our fourth presentation on how the agency plans on doing that. And this one was directed to how to get to youth groups and youth to find out, how Sonoma Clean Power can, help them in their lives and perhaps help them reach some of the climate goals that we have at the agency. So that was the fourth and final presentation on the program. One of the things that board members were asked for was to provide names of community groups that the agency could contact over the next year or so to reach out and do presentations. I provided a list of about 15 here in Petaluma, including our youth commission, among others. And if anybody has anybody from the council, anybody from the community is interested in that, please email me or contact me with the name of the group. Sonoma Clean Power does have a pretty good outreach program, and they are more than willing, especially in the Zoom age, to meet you where you are, because it's pretty easy relative to travel. In addition, we had a discussion there about the net metering proposed decision of the California PUC. Among other things that I've learned in the last few days is that decision, in terms of being taken up by the CPUC, has been postponed indefinitely. Sonoma Clean Power, which it is probably a good sign, and I say probably only because, well, this is my 8th year, either as the representative or alternate at Sonoma Clean Power, so I've been hearing about the CPUC in that fashion for 8 years. So it's sometimes very difficult to predict what that commission is up to, but I think it is good news. I think our letters and the letters that were sent throughout the state were very helpful in delaying and getting a more balanced approach to that proposed decision. Sonoma Clean Power will be sending in a letter based on our discussion in February. So hopefully, whatever comes out of this process will be something that is much more balanced, that balances the residential solar, not only the industry, but the consumers and the people that use residential solar and have placed them on their homes at some expense to themselves and ratepayers. And I think that there's a lot of options. And once the letter is sent from Sonoma Clean Power, I'll forward it on to city management so they can get to the right folks. But that was a bit of good news. The other good news that came out of the California PUC was that after some degree of litigation from Sonoma Clean Power and the California Community Choice Aggregates, you've heard me mention and others mention the PCIA charge, the Power Charge Indifference Adjustment, which is one of the few group of letters that doesn't get any better when you spell it out. But it's basically the charge that is being placed on your bill as a Sonoma Clean Power customer by PG&E for its earlier contracts that were entered into. Prior to this decision, PG&E did not have to provide discovery on how it was reaching its request to the CPUC about that charge. It will now have to produce everything. And that is a victory for CCAs and particularly Sonoma Clean Power. It seems very fair to me, but it has been a 7 or so year battle. And lastly, the chair and vice chair for the agency were elected. Deb Fudge from Windsor, I was elected vice chair, and I was elected to be the chair for the 2022 calendar year. So those are my reports. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And we'll go to Vice Mayor Hosake.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had an airport commission a meeting where I can report that work is nearly complete on updating the minimal standards, which I've been working on for a few months. Probably of more impact, the Health Action Council was referred an action item by a redesign committee, which recommended sunsetting the Health Action Council as an advisory Commission to the Board of Supervisors and approving their transition model for Health Action 2.0, as they call it, which will become independent of the County of Sonoma, although I'm sure everyone hopes still partially funded by it. But so the next year, the Health Action Council will be transitioning to Health Action 2.0. This will involve a paid executive director and a focus on a smaller number of issues that are more widely appreciated throughout the county, I guess is the best way to say that. At least that is the hope. But there's going to be a lot, you're going to hear a lot more fundraising requests from Health Action 2.0, and we'll be moving that forward.
Okay. Thank you very much. My reports include the Library Advisory Board, which met at the end of January. And this year, the Lumicom, which is a very successful activity that started by the Petaluma Library and has grown every year. This year, it had a virtual presence at the end of January, as it typically runs in the end of January. But it is also scheduled a live and in-person event to happen in April, and that will be at the fairgrounds. And so while it's really good that this is growing, I think they're very excited about actually doing something in person again. So that's something they're looking forward to. And the refresh that will close the library for some period of time between 6 and 8 months is coming closer to actually beginning, and they are expecting it to happen later in this calendar year. In addition, I attended the Economic Forecast for Sonoma County, which is an annual event that this year was done virtually. And while the report said that they felt that things are generally more positive in Sonoma County than in California, and that California is more positive than the United States as a whole, the 3 areas that they pointed out that still are going to be of concern in our county are labor shortages, the cost of housing, and daycare, which is something they pointed to last year as well. So I don't think those surprise any of us who talk to anybody in our community. So in addition to that, I was able to attend a groundbreaking at the Coast Guard station in Two Rock on Friday, the 28th of January. And this was a groundbreaking for a 5 megawatt microgrid and 11 megawatt battery storage operation that is going to allow the Coast Guard station to provide full 100% coverage of all the needs on the Coast Guard station for 10 entire days. And the impetus for this project was the Kincaid fire last year, which knocked service out at Two Rock for 5 days, where they had absolutely no access to electrical power. And the admiral from Washington came to be part of this, and he said, this is new territory for us, but this is the way that we have to go. And he had just come from an international conference in Toronto or in Canada, where everybody was from other countries were talking about that these are the issues that they are looking at as well. I think it is such an incredibly synergistic move on the part of the Coast Guard to become totally self-supporting in the case of an emergency, that just works so well with what we're doing here in Petaluma. And we talked about that, and the commandant at the Coast Guard really is interested in talking more to our city staff about making sure that those connections and partnerships go forward so that they can support us should we be in a situation that they found themselves in. So that was really an exciting event. I just felt the future was coming together. So that was very nice. I also was able to attend the online road conversation about North Mcdowell, and I agree with Councilmember McDonald. It was just a really good public interaction, and I really want to support staff and the public for a really good conversation. And I also was part of the age-friendly grant exhibit of what it will look like to have chess tables down at the end of the Balshaw Bridge at Water Street. And that's another exciting event that makes you start having hope that we're going to get back out and about in our community very soon. So with that, I have a lot of hope for our near future. And I'm going to pass it over to our city manager for her city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council, and good evening, Petaluma community. A couple notes, just a quick update on our People's Village at COTS. Our staff and COTS continue to get the People's Village up and running. 10 units have been delivered to the site, and construction on the site improvements are underway. That includes trenching for water and sewer, and work on the parking lot, ADA ramps and decking, electrical hookups and lighting, as well as setup of the units themselves. Everything is expected to be move-in ready by next week. And we are looking to have an opening event prior to move-in. So please stay tuned on that. But a lot of work is happening there, and we're hoping to have folks in those units very, very soon. Also, earlier in the month, given the escalating COVID rate cases due to Omicron, and to protect our community and reduce cases among city staff, the city closed our facilities to in-person visitors. And we also extended that facility closure through February 11th, which aligned with the current county health order regarding large gatherings. It's also set to expire on February 11th, and at that time, the city will be following that timeline and plans to reopen city facilities back to our prior scheduled hours, Tuesday and Thursday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. and by appointment beginning Tuesday, February 15th. And residents can visit cityofpetaluma.org/essential services to get more information about how to connect to city services. And we'll continue to monitor the latest COVID-related developments and adjust facility hours. And we're looking forward to being back in person and have our doors open during business hours as soon as we're able to do that. And then finally, wanted to invite our community to the Rainier Avenue Paving and Safety Upgrades Community Workshop. It's virtual, Wednesday, February 23rd from 6 to 8. And if you go to our website and look up Rainier Avenue, you will get that Zoom link. And we're looking forward to getting feedback and walking the community through that project. A couple of responses to comments in general public comment. The city has indeed in the past has had the undesirable distinction of having the worst roads in the Bay Area. The pavement condition index is based upon a 3-year moving average. So 2020 data is an average of 2018, 2019, and 2020. And it takes 2 to 3 years to show impacts of new investment on our roads. We've actually stabilized, whereas other cities have continued to have downward trends. So currently, we are no longer the worst in the Bay Area. We've moved up a notch. But now, thankfully, with the passage of Measure U, we are on track to double our investment in our pavement program. And we expect to enter an upward trend, although it's going to be subtle, but we're working very hard to get that rating up. And we're really thankful to our community for the passage of Measure U. And we'll see the fruits of that very soon. And that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, we will go on to approval of the minutes. And these are the minutes for January 24th. And I don't see any hands raising among the council members, so the minutes will be deemed approved as submitted. And then we're moving on to the approval of the proposed agendas. And these are the proposed agendas for the workshop on February 14th and the regular city council meeting for February 28th. And I see Councilmember Healy has his hand up.
Thank you. I would move to approve both.
Thank you. And Vice Mayor Posake, you are on mute.
Second that motion.
Thank you very much. We'll have a roll call vote.
Mayor Barrett,
Yes.
council members Barnacle,
Yes.
Healy,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
Posake.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously with council member Fisher absent.
Thank you very much. And now we'll move on to the consent calendar. Do I have any requests to remove anything from the consent calendar? Not seeing any hands raised. I will ask if there's any comments or discussion by the council. Not seeing any, I will ask our clerk if she has received any public comment on consent calendar items.
Madam Mayor, no public comments were received.
Thank you. I will ask our moderator to see if there's anybody in the Zoom audience who would like to speak on the consent calendar items.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There are 11 members of the public in attendance at this time. If any of them would like to raise their hand in Zoom, you will be called on in turn and have 3 minutes in which to give your comments. I see no hands raised, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. With that, we'll close public comment on the consent calendar, and I will ask Mr. Healy. Yes,
I would move approval of the entire consent calendar.
thank you. Councilmember McDonald.
In a second there.
Thank you. We'll take a roll call vote on that.
Mayor Barrett,
Yes.
council members Barnacle,
Yes.
Healy,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
and Posake.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously with council member Fisher absent.
Thank you very much. And now we'll move on to new business. Patrick just announced that we had 11 people in attendance on this Zoom meeting. So we'll go to new business, and that is the Petaluma Valley Groundwater Sustainability Agency rate options and direction to the Petaluma Valley Groundwater Sustainability Agency liaison. So with this, I'll call on Gina Benedetti-Petnick to start us off.
Thank you, Mayor Barrett and council members. Good evening. Ann DeBay with Sonoma Water will be presenting for us this evening on the Petaluma Valley Groundwater Sustainability Agency, or PVGSA, as we affectionately call it, rate and fee study. Ann is the Community and Government Affairs Manager for Sonoma Water, which provides outreach services for Sonoma County's 3 groundwater sustainability agencies. She also serves as the administrator for the Petaluma Valley and Sonoma Valley GSAs. Ann's currently also the president of the California Groundwater Coalition. In November of last year, Ann and her colleague Jay Jaspers, the chief engineer and director of groundwater programs with Sonoma Water, came before this council with a presentation about the Petaluma Valley Groundwater Sustainability Plan, or the GSP, its adoption and its implementation. And that November presentation is attached to the staff report for your reference. Tonight, Ann's back to provide an update on the GSP process and an introduction to future funding options for your consideration and discussion. Following Ann's presentation, I believe Councilmember Healy, Petaluma's representative and council's liaison on the Petaluma Valley GSA board, may have some additional comments. And with that, I welcome Ann DeBay. Take it away, Ann.
Thank you. And we can go ahead and start the presentation. Thank you. Next slide, please. So thank you, Gina, and thank you, Council and Madam Mayor, and especially thanks to Councilmember Healy for inviting the GSA to be here tonight to provide a short overview of where we are right now with the Groundwater Sustainability Plan and future funding options. I hope to be able to answer any questions you might have and also to receive any feedback. Next slide. So I think most of you were at the meeting a couple of months ago that Gina mentioned, where we discussed the Groundwater Sustainability Plan, myself and Jay Jaspers, and we covered the GSA background. So I'm not going to go over this slide. If we can go on to the next one. But just a reminder that the Groundwater Sustainability Agency was state mandated, and it's responsible for managing groundwater in the Petaluma Valley Basin, which is basically the valley floor from Pengrove south to San Pablo Bay. Next slide. And to the agency currently, since its start in June of 2017, has been funded primarily by grants, but also pretty significantly by contributions from member agencies, including the city of Petaluma, that over the past 5 years has contributed in total about $345,000. And thank you to those contributions. Those have allowed us the agency to operate and to also complete that groundwater sustainability plan that we talked about a couple of months ago. Next slide. And so that plan actually was due on January 31st, so last Monday, to the state. We turned it in ahead of time. I think that's the first time I've ever done my homework early. And but we got it in ahead of time, and we were just notified today that it is now available for public review through the Department of Water Resources, and that review period will be open until April 23rd. So that's exciting news. Anyway, that plan basically ensures that the basin will be sustainable for 50 years. And the first 5 years, because there's not a lot of specifically identified problems in the basin, which is the good news. The bad news is that SGMA does require us to fill the data gaps. And unfortunately, we have quite a few data gaps in the basin. So next slide, please. Our estimate is that it will cost about $1.1 million annually to fill all those data gaps and comply with the monitoring requirements in SGMA, the annual reporting, and then a new 5-year groundwater sustainability plan. So the agency has hired a fee consultant to help determine how to pay for those the operations and the plan implementation. And so we have embarked on a fee study. Next slide, please. And as you know, there's local governments have kind of some limited options. So the GSA is looking at the usual suspects and probably a combination of all of them, which would be some grant funding, potentially ongoing member agency contributions, potentially, possibly a tax, and most likely fees. Next slide. So the options that are the most appropriate for groundwater and water utilities in general could be a parcel tax, which is levied on everyone in the basin. As you know, it would be the least expensive per payer because you have the most people paying. There's some significant barriers, of course, to the parcel tax. One is that it would be expensive for the GSA to actually place it on the ballot. It would need a campaign, and it's kind of hard to imagine who would fund that campaign. And then, of course, the biggest obstacle is that a 2/3 vote would be required. The second option, which is these are going from the fee or slash tax that would be the lowest per payer to the ones that would be higher. The second one would be a fee based on irrigated acreage. And of the groundwater sustainability agencies in the state, there are lots of them now. Only one, as far as I know, is using the method of charging per irrigated acre. And that's the Salinas Valley Basin. And they have kind of a homogeneous type of agriculture with a lot of irrigators. So that may make sense for that particular basin. The third option would be one that most GSAs are using, or more GSAs are using, including the Santa Rosa Plain. And that's a fee that's imposed on all groundwater pumpers, and it's based on acre feet of groundwater pumped. And there's a clear nexus there to the amount of groundwater that's used. Challenges get into things like if you don't have a meter on your well, which most groundwater pumpers don't locally, you have to use estimates. The GSA would have to use estimates. And there's been a lot of work done on estimates. They're used throughout the state. They're generally pretty reliable and pretty accurate, but still it can be a barrier for some people to be paying a fee based on their estimated pumping. The fourth option would be a wellhead fee, and that's basically a fee that you pay for each well you own. And that's really not related to the amount of groundwater that you pump. And there are some challenges with equity around that. For example, should a well owner that pumps, that has an agricultural well, be paying the same fee as a rural resident who just pumps for their domestic use? You can get around that with different kinds of classifications of wells, but there are some challenges to that one, and it's more expensive per well owner. And then the fifth approach could be a benefit assessment type of approach, which is to create a benefit assessment district, and groundwater users who benefit more from a project or program would pay more than those who benefit less. And that's, there's a lot of law around that. It's a very specific balloting notification process. It's very transparent, and it has the potential to spread the cost very widely or very narrowly, depending on how you define it. So next slide. So at the February 24th GSA board meeting, the GSA board will be looking at the options that we discussed on the last slide and possibly additional options. And they'll also be discussing these questions that on this slide, things like who should pay, what should people be paying for? But I think that a lot of the focus will be on that in that column called other challenges. One of those challenges is questions around, do member agencies get paid back for those contributions that they made in that first 5 years of supporting the GSA? That was originally the hope when the GSAs were created. It does, of course, increase the fees to do that, but member agencies could be paid back over time, and maybe not all member agencies feel the need to get paid back. Also questions around reserve levels and the board's comfort with higher versus lower reserve levels, and the board's comfort on grant assumptions. So at the February 24th meeting, nothing will be decided. No options will be taken off the table, but the board will be providing some significant direction to staff and the consultants about things that they would like us to continue pursuing. And next slide, please. And then from there, we will take that feedback and go out to the community in March to get feedback on these options and ideas through a community meeting, and bring that feedback back to the board again, and then go back out to the community in April with the possibility of the board adopting a funding plan at its May or June meetings. So that's the end of my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions and get any feedback from you, or turn it over to Councilmember Healy for additional comments.
Okay, so thank you very much for that, Anne. Does anyone have any questions for Anne at this time? I'll start off. Actually, I do have a quick question. On slide 9, you mentioned the 5 different ways of perhaps paying for this, and you did point out that the second option was something that is done by Salinas, which has just one kind of user primarily. Is there any of those 5 different ways of paying that are most commonly used, or are other areas closer to where we are where they haven't determined the use, the pay structure?
Yes, the per acre fee, per acre foot fee. So that's what Santa Rosa Plain adopted, and that's what I think the majority of GSAs in the state who've adopted fees, and there's not a ton yet that have adopted fees, but they've primarily focused on a pumping fee, as it's called. So, for example, and I'll use Santa Rosa Plain because it's local and they've already done a lot of this work. For example, it's assumed that if you are a rural resident and you just use your well for, watering your garden and that's using household purposes, that you use half an acre foot of water annually. And so you would pay in Santa Rosa Plain, the fee per acre foot is about $20. And so a rural resident would pay $10. If you have 10 acres of grapes, and it's assumed that vineyards take about half an acre foot annually to water each acre, you would pay the 10 acres times the half acre foot would be, assume that you use 5 acres of water a year, 5 acre feet of water a year, and times the 20 would be $100 a year. So that's how it's done in most of the basins so far. A lot of them are being supported still by counties and local governments. Salinas also does they have a two-pronged fee, the irrigated acreage fee, and then also through the municipalities, they charge a water connection fee for each person who's connected to a public water system. It's a very, very small fee.
Okay, so, the name of this group is, Groundwater Sustainability. So one assumes that the purpose of the fees is to promote sustainability of our groundwater. And I find it a little difficult to figure out how we are incentivizing pumpers not to use more water, if you just assume, because they're not metered. And or many of them are not metered, and for non-metered users, I don't see where the incentive is to use less if you're just assuming that they only use X amount, and then they can just use whatever they want because they're just going to be charged on this other basis. So that is something that troubles me with how this is shaping up in what I read in the staff report and so far in these options for charging. But anyhow, I'm sure Councilmember Healy has something more to add to that. And unless anyone else has questions, okay, we'll go on to Councilmember Healy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Ann, for the presentation. It probably didn't escape anyone's notice that there were no numbers associated with the presentation tonight. The reason for that is the rate consultants are in a little bit of shock about how high the numbers could be for the Petaluma Valley GSA. And it's kind of ironic that we have the similar expenses as the Santa Rosa Plain, but we have many fewer wells. So the expense has to be spread over a much lower number of wells. So they're trying to figure out a way around that. So a couple things I wanted to mention. So Madam Mayor, you mentioned the incentive to pump less. One of the really surprising outcomes of the plan that was submitted to the state in last month is that in our groundwater basin, human interaction with the basin really has minimal impact on the basin. The groundwater is really primarily impacted by natural processes, and so as Ann mentioned, our groundwater basin is in pretty good shape. So the $1.1 million a year going forward, very little of that or none of it will actually be going towards programs that will be improving the groundwater basin directly, like recharge or those kinds of programs. It's really all additional wells and monitoring and filling data gaps, as Ann mentioned, and report writing and things like that. So that's a very difficult sell, I think, for the public in terms of, you know, why you should be paying money for that kind of work as opposed to something that's actually physically improving the aquifer. One of the things I was hoping to get tonight was at least preliminary direction to not support the parcel tax approach. And there's a couple reasons for that. Number one, residents within the city of Petaluma who benefit from our backup well system get the same benefit from that backup well system, whether they live within the GSA boundary or not. And there are portions of the city of Petaluma that are within the GSA, and there are other portions of the city that are outside the GSA. So my feeling has been that whatever the city's fair share for the GSA's budget going forward should just come as a bill to the city of Petaluma, and our water utility fund should pay it and spread it over all of our water customers, not just those who live within the GSA boundaries. In addition to that, as Ann mentioned, a parcel tax would require 2/3 approval. And now with the California Roundtable initiative lurking in the bushes, there's a prohibition that would be retroactive against using public funds even for informational campaigns, which has been common in the past, but that would be prohibited moving forward. One complicating factor, and I don't want to get into the weeds on this tonight, but in terms of groundwater use, and this is something I'll get into at the GSA meeting coming up, so that's a heads up, Ann. Most of the well users, I would imagine, use a rather constant or consistent amount of water every year. The city's backup well system, we hardly use it at all except for testing most years, and then the last year we've been running it as hard as we can. So there would have to be some sort of averaging to go on a fee based on groundwater use. And the other thing I wanted to mention, this is kind of alluded to in the staff report, but not as bluntly as I'm going to state it now, is that due to the GSA's bylaws, the GSA on matters such as this has adopted the highly efficient United Nations Security Council form of governance, so that Supervisor Rabbit and I both have vetoes over things like this. So Petaluma needs to sign on to whatever fundraising structure we need in order for it to pass. As I mentioned, the numbers are not here yet. The GSA board will look at this later this month. I plan to come back regularly to the council at council comment after the February 24th meeting and thereafter if needed, so that staff doesn't need to continue putting these things on the agenda, but I will be updating the council on developments at the GSA that way. So that's all I had for right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I had a question, Mike. In terms of, do you have any data on, whether there'd be any gain from insisting on meters for all the big users in the basin instead of estimating?
I don't know how many big users there actually are. Most of them are smaller ag users. We've got 1 or 2 industrial users inside the city limits, and then the city's own wells. I mean, we know how much we're pumping, and that's data we can share. But that's a fair question, and maybe Ann, if you could think about that and report back to the GSA on that, I'd appreciate it.
Other than that, I mean, I think you've both made a good argument to not consider further a parcel tax. And I also I think something on the order of, I think what you're suggesting, similar to Salinas, except not using irrigated acreage, but using acre feet used, and to try to come up with a fair separation of cost between the city residents through their water bills and the acre feet representatives, and the other thing I wanted to just add, if you're not already considering it, is perhaps we should set these prices enough to cover everything, with the idea that if we can get any grants or anything, that would free up some money to pay back some of these debts we have. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember McDonald?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I just wanted to weigh in that in concurring that the tax, it seems like a lesser choice, that rolling it into city rates seems to be the wise thing to do. But then also, I think I heard that we only use our wells in case of drought. But much like building a dam, I think that, if you buy it for the emergency, you bought it anyways, and I don't know that we would discount our reliability on groundwater. We'll want it the day we need it. So I'm okay with kind of paying full freight on our fair share. I am concerned what happens on out of city wells and how those folks handle the hit that's coming. I guess they have representation. That's a question. Is that true that there's representation and they're negotiating? It's a big liability they'll be under. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember King?
Thank you. I'll be brief. I agree with you on the tax. My note from when reading the staff report was not realistic. So I think even if it was something that people would be inclined to pursue, I seriously doubt it would pass with 2/3. So I would dump that, and I think the hybrid approach that's recommended or suggested indirectly in the report probably is the best to give you some of the flexibility that's there.
Thank you.
That's it.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, you didn't. I was done. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Healy?
Yeah, thank you. So one final point I didn't raise the first time, and Ann mentioned this in her presentation, and that's the question of whether the member agencies should expect payback of the funds that have been put in so far. My recommendation would be that if the other agencies are willing to forego repayment, that we do so as well. The magnitude of the expected fees is such that I think it would just be additional challenge to an already very challenging situation.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Barnacle?
I agree. We shouldn't try and have our costs recovered if others aren't. Makes sense. In terms of, I agree that the parcel tax doesn't seem like it makes sense in this instance. The fee based on irrigated acreage, similar to what the mayor said earlier, that I feel like we want to be promoting sustainability, and so the hybrid model of something applied to all water connections, ideally keeping that fairly small to cover fixed costs, and then something based on actual or estimated would be my recommendation if I were to think about this.
Okay, so before we go to the public, I'd also like to bring up that I think if there is the possibility for tiered rates as our own water usage is, that the more you use, the more you get charged per unit at above a certain level, because again, sustainability seems to be the key here. Also, from the staff report, there was mention of looking at the water hauling rules, and is that correct? Or is that Ann or Mike?
I'm not sure I understood what you said, looking at the water
hauling, like how people who do water hauling, I don't know if that means from their sources. It wasn't clear to me when I was reading it whether what that upgrade is, but that is definitely something that I would like to have any discussion of that come back to Petaluma, to our council members, if it involves city water, because I know that is a thing. But outside outside our city water, I think those rules should still, sustainability seems to me to be the guiding principle on which we're looking at all of this through the how we're going to be charging people and how we're defining things. But yes, the data gap does seem to be critically important to find out, how you're going to be solving these issues. So thank you very much for your contribution. We have the public here, and so there might, I would ask our city clerk if she has received any comments on this item.
Madam Mayor, no comments were received.
Okay, thank you. So I will ask our moderator, we will open public comment on this item and see if there's anyone in the public who would like to speak to this item.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members of the public wishing to speak on this item, please raise your hand in Zoom and you'll be called on in turn. You'll have 3 minutes in which to give your comments. And I see we have one hand currently raised, and that is Recusin. You may unmute and begin your comments.
Thank you. A couple quick comments. First of all, I appreciate the presentation. And for any members of the public, it looks like we can go to Petaluma Valley Groundwater.org and read more about the programs. A couple questions and just reading through past strategy documents, some of the current items I'm seeing here. Is there any more clarification we can get about exactly what the funds would pay for? Because yeah, we have data gaps, there's monitoring. It seems like this would also go toward identifying potential recharge areas, because when we think about the groundwater supply and some of the objectives you're listing, sustainability, protection, I just want to know kind of what the tangible strategies are, because in reading the I believe it was the 2017 or the 2018 strategy document, it talked about engaging the public, it talked about monitoring, but do we have concrete strategies these funds would be used for to actually replenish the aquifer? And when it comes to doing some of the testing and monitoring, do we have strategies on protecting, I would assume, groundwater from contamination? And maybe part of that question is, do you guys integrate it all with the state, Water Resource Control Board, private and public stakeholders that have to submit documents via GeoTracker? Does any of that information get built into current groundwater monitoring efforts on your end, or do we kind of have to start from scratch with the Petaluma Valley Groundwater Basin Agency for all of that data on potential contamination? And yeah, then I would just reiterate, are there strategies there for actually identifying recharge areas? What does implementing infrastructure look like? Because it talks about collaborating with land managers and people. So, and maybe this is something you can direct us to on the website, but just examples of when some of these engineering solutions come into play, what those costs are. And I think I'm echoing some of Councilmember Healy's comments, just giving us, the public, an idea of what this money pays for. Obviously, I mean, we are not a big well consumer ourselves, but I do know people that do use wells in this area. And I think it's just a matter of, when we're talking about implementing a tax, what is that going to pay for outside of the data collection? What's kind of the light at the end of the tunnel? I mean, what are the solutions that get implemented? How does that effectively impact the aquifer for the better for all users, to kind of incentivize anyone wanting to pay for it? So, and I guess with that, just if there's any detail on the actual implementation of any kind of fee, would this show up on property tax? Would it be a separate form or bill that someone receives? Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. And that is the last hand raised. So I'll turn it back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. With that, we'll close public comment on this item. And I don't know if either Anne or Mike would like to respond to that, or Gina, yes.
Sure, I'll kick it off. I can add that the implementation for the plan, there were questions about implementation. Those can be found in Chapter 7 of the Groundwater Sustainability Plan, which can be found on the website that the caller mentioned. And there's quite a bit of detail there, and I would recommend checking that out. And then I'm gonna ask Anne and Mike if they want to respond to the question about what exactly, or what do we anticipate the fees are going to be going toward, and articulate that if you could.
So Anne, I believe you had a slide on your PowerPoint that talked about that. Can you put that back up?
Yes, sure. That's slide number like 4. But I can speak to that a little bit. There is a, as Gina mentioned see if you go back to the one with the pie chart. I guess it's 7, there we go. So the, as the caller mentioned, and thank you, it's clear that you've looked at some of the materials on the website. Chapter 7 or Section 7 of the plan really does go into implementation, and then there's a timeline there in that section that goes over what projects and plans would happen first, and the timing of those. Generally, under that projects and planning design, the projects, because the basin isn't in tremendous trouble, as Councilmember Healy mentioned, the projects would be doing for rural groundwater users the kind of water conservation and water use efficiency programs that that urban water users have had for the past couple of decades, in terms of toilet retrofits, those kinds of voluntary water use reduction programs, working closely with ag and our trusted partners like UC Cooperative Extension and the Resource Conservation District on ag irrigation, and making sure that people understand the ag community, especially the smaller growers, have the most up-to-date information and practices available to them. So helping get funding for those kinds of projects and programs, and just some basic well education. And then the 3 groundwater sustainability agencies in the other basins would collaborate on some studies, like, as you mentioned, aquifer storage and recovery, and some other studies that can be used to help us determine the best areas for recharge in the basin, wells that might be available for aquifer storage and recovery, which is a type of recharge, a very specific type of recharge, and then some studies really around seawater intrusion and the possibilities of that in the basin in the near future. So a lot more details in Section 7.
And if I could add, and just reminding myself that this pie chart is the first 5 years, and it's pretty intensive on filling the data gaps and the model updates, right? That real early planning piece that is critical to then probably what we'll see happen in the 5 years subsequent to that is a much more weighted pie chart looking at projects and design for recharge and for other sustainability efforts responding to the data. So, it's kind of that first 5 years feels a little lopsided to me, and I think that's going to migrate, if I'm right.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, in all 3 basins, actually, even a basin like Sonoma Valley, which does need projects, the big focus for the first 5 years is really on the data gaps and then planning and design.
Okay, well, thank you, Gina, and thank you, Anne, on that. Mike, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, no, that was really good. I just wanted to add one kind of interesting nuance, and as Anne and Gina indicated, there's not a perceived need in our plan to be front-loading projects at this time in order to meet the Sigma requirements. At the same time, and this is kind of an interesting nuance, I think we should very much be aggressively looking at groundwater recharge opportunities, even though they might not be required by Sigma as part of our water supply strategy going forward. So just because it isn't required by Sigma doesn't mean it's something we don't want to do. And I know we just approved a grant application to seek funds to do precisely that, and I'm very supportive of that going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, we are not asked to take any vote on this. We have just had discussion and direction. So thank you to Anne and Gina and staff for this report, and Councilmember Healy for your work on this committee, or yeah, I guess it's a committee, I don't know, an agency. So we appreciate that. And with that, we are done with tonight's meeting. And I would like to adjourn tonight's meeting in honor of Alice Belinda Fisher and Marla Savano. So good night.
Night, everyone.